Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone everywhere in between. I'm A Spectrum D, but you may also call me Lewis, and welcome to a little creative exercise I've set for myself. You see, I've always struggled to create characters and stories that use ideas all my own. But here on The Forge, our whole thing is analysing, criticising, and creating narratives, among other things. So it was inevitable, inexorable even, that I really challenged myself. For this challenge, I'll be going over my personal Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 creator characters' designs and backstory. If you have any constructive criticism, or even want to talk about your own cags, feel free to discuss them in the comment section. With that out of the way, welcome to the Fiction Forge. We begin with physical appearance. Rather predictably, my CAC is a Saiyan. However, unpredictably, or maybe it is predictable, hell if I know, she hails from the planet Sadala of an alternate Universe 7, set before the internal conflict that led to its destruction started. She stands at 5'8" as an adult and possesses a tail, which she doesn't mind letting loose in non-combat situations. As expected of a pure-blooded Saiyan, her hair is jet black, and is accompanied by green eyes contained within a compromise of rounded but angular sclera. Her light-skinned build is a slim one, much like the Saiyans of Universe 6, but her otherwise unassuming visage houses considerable power. Finally, to end off her physiognomy, a pair of symmetrical enough rectangular red tattoos reside on her face, one on each cheek facing diagonally. She didn't always have these markings, or her name for that matter. Now we're going into the backstory side of things, so let's change up the mood a little bit, shall we? After she showed an unrelenting reluctance to fight, despite her higher than average power level, a baby girl was swiftly and haphazardly sent off into space by her disappointed parents, and expected to expire through either a chance collision with an asteroid or shot at by a craft from another party. Against the odds placed by the universe and her family though, the young Saiyan's outdated pod made an unpleasant, but not fatal, landing on a technologically backwards planet. The inhabitants of said planet peered from the entrances to their subterranean civilization. They'd never seen anything like the strange space toddler or her pod before. This tribe's people had various body types from tall and lean to short and stocky, but the one thing they all shared was a pair of red tattoos on their cheeks and the possession of fur tunics. Believed to be a gift to them from the stars, the tribe enthusiastically embraced the child and she was raised by their elder, identifiable by the circlet placed on his head. He and his people would have the learning experience of their lives, as they not only had to get accustomed to the girl's abnormal raw strength, but also figure out the meaning behind her screams, sighs, laughter, grunts, and cries. You see, these people didn't communicate in any verbal capacity. They relied on facial expressions and physical movements, and those would vary in speed or intensity depending on the context or urgency. This would become difficult to adjust to for the young girl, as while she could see things at a distance pretty well, she had difficulties seeing things from closer up. She would come to learn in time that this was because she was hyperopic, or, to you and me, far-sighted. As time passed and the girl got older, she became fully integrated with the underground society, taking on duties that utilized her power, such as transporting heavy loads, manually carving out space for expansion with her bare hands, running long distances at breakneck speeds to create links with other tribes, and more. Although the work was tedious, the now woman had made a simple, dutiful, and perhaps a little monotonous life. She was content, she was comfortable, and she was happy. However, there were one or two glaring issues. As the woman had grown, so too did her latent Saiyan urge for combat. It was negligible until she was a toddler. She suppressed it as best she could as a teenager, but now as an adult in her prime it was getting more and more difficult. For the last few years, she had leapt far enough away in the early morning to take it out on the unoccupied terrain. It also didn't help that she had also been suppressing the urge to exit the caves at night for reasons she couldn't fathom. The next day, after she had finished what she was tasked with, she went to seek the guidance of the village elder. Unfortunately, said elder wasn't getting any younger, and as a result of years of increasing frailty, he couldn't do more than communicate. And even that was getting challenging now as well. The young woman articulated her struggles as best she could. Her actions couldn't cover everything, but the elder saw the discomfort and worry on her face. He hobbled over and sat on the floor by her side. While neither knew the words for it, their connection was like a grandfather with his granddaughter. She sat down herself and entered the embrace he offered wholeheartedly. The pair were there for some time, so long in fact they'd both fallen asleep. The cavern's entrance was faintly lit by moonlight when the Saiyan awoke. She peered through the doorway to the elder's small house and saw the moon's soft white light at the mouth of the cavern. The senseless desire hit her again. It was almost hypnotic. For the moment, she resisted. Now she could show the elder what she was trying to describe. She crouched down and gently woke the old man from his slumber, anxiously pointing to the light at the entry to their home. The elder rose slowly and invited her to walk to the light with him, hoping he could now understand the woman's strange draw to it. She eagerly accepted, though she found it hard to match the elder's slower pace as the celestial light's draw persisted. When they finally made their way across their vast underground home's floor and reached the entrance, the two looked curiously at the moon as they stood under its light luminance. The elder was amused by the sight of a full moon. Given how much time they spent either working in the day or sleeping in the cavern, they hardly ever saw or paid any attention to it. Perhaps one day, their people could travel there, learn about its secrets. The old man placed his hand upon his accomplice's shoulder, but she didn't respond. No turn of the head, no flinch, not even one of her many foreign sounds. She just looked endlessly at the far-off right sphere. The elder moved in front of her to see what was happening, only to see that her sclerae were completely void of any features. Her irises and pupils were completely gone, and the blank space that remained transitioned from its normal off-white to a bright glowing red, as her teeth transitioned into sharp fangs. Her body began to convulse violently as it grew in size. Her skin became covered by thick brown fur and her muscles embiggened. What stood before the elder was no longer the strong and dutiful young woman he and his tribe, who had been rudely awakened by the tremors that came with the creature's steps, had raised, but a gargantuan primate with no sense in its mind. The creature was what we know to be a great ape. The rest of the tribe gazed in horror at the monster standing atop their home. They looked fruitlessly for the assistance of the woman they had relied on for years. Had they not disregarded all of their elders' attempts to clue them in on who or what the beast really was out of blind fear, maybe things would have turned out differently. Alas, though, a single-sided, senseless, and indiscriminate slaughter ensued. Some succumbed to the beast's size and weight, others attempted to flee but were utterly disintegrated by heated beams of light from its mouth. After a short time, all there was left were the colossal ape and a fleeting wind that brushed against the nearby trees momentarily. For the rest of the night, the ape aimlessly assaulted its surroundings. Years of suppressed violent urges subconsciously released with wild abandon until the moon finally descended below the horizon. The beast's mind went blank as it finally gave in to sleep. The woman awoke with a jolt as dawn had broken. She didn't recall going to sleep. She was hit with a strange vision as well, one where she was high up in the sky and could only hear an unruly and unholy roar, flickering in and out like a faulty light bulb. The first realization she had after zoning back in was that her tunic wasn't on her person. But she didn't wonder for long as she found it covered in dirt and partially flattened a short distance from her. Putting it on, she scanned her surroundings. The first thing that stood out among the artificial craters and singed foliage was the tribe's elder. Or rather, what was left of him. She rushed over and knelt down by his lifeless and burnt remains in disbelief. As tears flowed from her eyes and her breathing increased its pace, she caught the sight of another corpse in her peripheral vision, and then another, and then another, and then another. The emotional agony had finally broken through its dams, and all that could be heard was a pained, unstable, grief-stricken shriek that echoed across the empty wasteland for over an hour. The tears were still drying when the lonely tribeswoman uncurled and stood up, preparing to leave. She wasn't sure what to do. Maybe she'd seek refuge with one of the other tribes. Maybe she'd be better off going it alone. She had the skills and the power to get by, but she wasn't sure. Before she departed, though, she took ownership of the Elder's circlet as a token of his memory, his and the others. Before she could get very far, however, the powers that be hadn't decided that they were quite finished yet. A bright white light with traces of purple spontaneously appeared in the sky above her, consuming anything and everything within it. Despite how blinding it was, the woman could just about see the tallest cliff in the area begin to disintegrate into smaller and smaller fragments, until they disappeared into nothingness. As the matter in the surrounding area kept reducing, the fear and desperation to survive began to build in the lone Saiyan's mind. She wildly punched and kicked at the ground. With each strike, a crater formed, then a large tunnel. She dug deeper and deeper as she attacked the ground with all the might she could muster, like a wild animal burying out a home to call its own. Ironically though, the last remaining member of an otherwise extinct tribe was now trying to escape the erasure of the only home she had ever known. The dirt soon turned to stone and the pace lessened, with both the tougher terrain and waning strength contributing evenly to a futile attempt to delay the terrible fate our protagonist was met with. She had finally exhausted all of her strength, and could only look back at the deathly luminance that followed with no fatigue. She took one last look at her final resting place, a graceless burial of her own making being consumed by an otherworldly force beyond her comprehension. As she shut her eyes tightly and screamed at the top of her lungs, images of her world, her speechless tribe, and wordless memories flooded her mind, followed by a final flash of the vision she had had before her world fell to pieces. This was the end for our protagonist. Or at least, it would have been, had a brown-gloved hand not suddenly clutched her wrist before the two disappeared into the ether. The last thing the universe saw before it ceased to exist was a select number of hairs on its remaining resident's head briefly turning gold for naught but a single second. The woman awoke in an all-white hospital bed, next to a small bedside table with built-in cupboards, which the circlet she procured was laid atop, all contained within purple curtains on 3 sides, and a muted blue painted wall on the back. As she sat up quickly, she was met with a spell of dizziness and clutched her head as she noticed her tunic had been replaced by a strange white gown. Her vision cleared slightly. Remember, she's far-sighted. While a doctor pushed the frontward curtain aside, drawing her attention. He began to talk about the circumstances he was told she was found in, and how fortunate it was that she was rescued when she was. But upon looking back, he was met with a confused and wary expression accompanied by silence. The woman didn't understand a word he was saying, at least he wasn't hostile. She asked about the whereabouts of her tunic through the act of pointing to herself, and then pulling on the strange fabric of her gown with both hands. The doctor was initially puzzled, but then knelt down to the bedside cupboard and opened it, pulling out the very same garment she was looking for. The Saiyan wasted no time at all pulling the tunic from the loose grip of the doctor, who left her alone in the small space to change in privacy, not that it was the sort of thing she was concerned about. She stepped out of her private bay as the doctor greeted her. Before stepping over to another patient, he handed her a pair of small squares of paper with a picture of a person on each one. In the first picture was a man with a similar complexion to her, faded purple hair and a large dark grey overcoat. In the other was a shorter, more feminine figure, She had pink skin and hair in differing shades, small silver earrings with curved golden tips, and a sleeveless blue turtleneck top. These people were somehow noteworthy, important perhaps. She had to find at least one of them. She nodded at the doctor in understanding, bowed, and then jumped through an open window to the shock of those still in eyeshot. After a series of short, non-verbal interactions with this new world's people, the woman was pointed in the direction of the landmark we know as the Time Nest. Following a walk up the curiously shaped staircase, she reached the entrance, staring at the distorted, glowing gateway before stepping through it. She was met with a large, flat, open space. The bright green grass contrasted with the cobbled pathway of varying desaturated colored stones that led to one of two structures. One was large and multi-layered, made of predominantly white concrete with gold and purple accents, and the other was a white and red hemisphere with windows surrounded by miscellaneous objects of varying sizes. She walked towards the former, switching her gaze from it to the pair of pictures in her hand, assuming she'd find someone important in there. She knew that scale was often used to measure value or importance. Suddenly, she heard a hey from behind her. She stopped and turned around to see a small figure running towards her. Finally, it was someone she recognized in some way. The Saiyan held one of the pictures in front of her for a side-by-side comparison just to be sure. This was one of the people she was told to look for. Well, if the colors were anything to go by. The vertically challenged one came to a stop and put one hand on her hip and pointed the other at the Saiyan, stating that she couldn't just walk in like she owned the place. Thankfully, she, the Supreme Kai of Time, had been informed by one of her patrollers about what happened to her, and was graciously stepping in to personally help her adjust to Content City with the help of her right-hand man. Perhaps she could even join the Time Patrol after some training in the academy. Rather awkwardly though, our Saiyan hadn't understood a word that she just said. It had only then registered that this would be a common occurrence for a while. Seeing the slightly discomforted tilt of her head, the Supreme Kai of Time understood the presence of the communication barrier between them. She relaxed her arms and offered a hand to shake. This was the first gesture the newbie knew, and she took it softly. The Supreme Kai of Time sauntered beside her towards the larger building. With a new guide by her side, a new chapter in our Saiyan's book begins. This concludes my coverage of the more dramatic telling of Lavenda's story, but I will give some bullet points for her development and where she stands in the present day, or as relevant as present is for a society based on time travel. After Cronoa takes her inside, she introduces Lavenda to Trunks, who was the one to save her life. She, Lavenda, responds with a respectful bow after watching the events unfold in the scrolls a couple of times. This is when Trunks and Cronoa learn of her visual impairment. Following this, Lavenda goes with Trunks on a walk around Content City. It's when they finish up their tour in the Academy Gardens that Trunks brings up Lavenda's lack of an actual name. He only gets the idea for it when he finds her inspecting a freshly plucked lavender whilst he's talking to himself. The intentional misspelling derives simply from the kid in him taking the wheel. Lavenda also attends private sessions with Gohan to learn about basic speech and writing, then attends academy classes to both expand on Gohan's teachings and learn new things. She takes to both aspects of language well, though with her sight, text presents challenges. Outside of language, she prefers the more practical side of her education, electing to use her strength as more of a tool than a weapon. That said, she does attend training sessions with Trunks on occasion to let out her innate urge for combat. While on a social outing with Cronoa to see how she's getting on, Lavenda is gifted a pair of glasses to help with her vision. This is the first time Lavenda has embraced anyone since the Elder died. While this emotional act touches Cronoa's heart, she knows that it's just going to make things worse when Lavenda inevitably finds out what happened to her timeline. After a considerable time passes, Lavenda decides that she's at a more than adequate point with her language and understanding, and goes to Cronoa to ask if she knows, or can find out, either what erased her planet or what killed everyone first. With a heavy heart masked by an all-business face, the Kai shows her both in their entirety. If the sights and Great Ape revelations aren't already enough to put tears on Lavenda's lenses, her heart weeps as well upon the big reveal that not only did Cronoa erase the branching timeline she came from, but that Trunks knew it as well. She's not seen leaving her apartment for over a week afterwards. At the end of this period, Cronoa shows up to said apartment to educate Lavenda on the workings of the Time Patrol, both the lighter and darker aspects. She doesn't expect forgiveness, but perhaps context will help give her an understanding of her motives and not make her seem totally heartless. Reluctantly, Saiyan agrees. After being filled in by both Cronoa and Trunks, who admits he wanted to tell her everything sooner but wasn't allowed, Lavenda isn't inclined to forgive them yet, but does understand that what they do is for the sake of a greater cause. She accepts Trunks' apology and forgives him first. For the most part, he was either acting under orders or he was concerned about her reaction, even though it was guaranteed to not be a positive one. For Noah though, that was going to be harder. She didn't hold any ill will toward her or anything, she was just hurt. She felt betrayed. With some encouragement from Trunks, Lavenda decides to at least go through Time Patroller training, just so she knows what to do in case they need some stronger hands. She also resumes the occasional training sessions with Trunks, where she eventually not only unlocks and masters Super Saiyan, but learns about other forms through him. Later on, Lavenda enters the Festival of Universes. When she reaches the semi-finals, she's pushed to unlock Super Saiyan 2 and wins the match, though it's not stable enough to carry her through the final. Despite how rough things were between them, Cronoa still goes to congratulate Lavenda on her placement. Whether it was the high of the event, or getting a glimpse at the genuine joy and encouragement on Cronoa's face as the Saiyan fought, the latter was finally motivated to forgive her. Lavenda's development somehow draws the attention of Vegeta of all people, who offers to tutor her as opposed to Trunks. He claims that he knows she's aware of the different paths of ascension, and can help her tap into her Saiyan roots, not relying on God Ki as her sole means. The caveat: he would only make this offer right there and then, no other chances. Following the writing of a letter to Trunks informing him of her tenure with him ending, Lavenda learned to endure the prince's harsh and frequent training. Under his tutelage, she masters Super Saiyan 2, then 3. She quickly learned not to rely on this form very much. Then, after multiple attempts and enlisting Trunks' help, she ascends to Super Saiyan 4. More than content with her form selection, Lavenda calls off all routine training and fills her time with a mix of creative writing and manual work, with the odd job for the Time Patrol or solo training session here and there. Now we move on to her personality. Lavenda is quiet by choice, though she will speak if she has no other way of conveying her feelings or message. She's also well-spoken and well-mannered, but won't hesitate to make her feelings known either through words or actions. If she's wronged someone and knows it, she'll apologize as soon as possible. If she's been wronged, she'll forgive those that deserve it in time. She doesn't actively seek social connections, but is willing to engage with those she does get close to. She puts her tasks first when she's on patrol, but does feel deeply about how her actions impact people. Now, on to the outfits. No matter the occasion and no matter the time, whether Lavenda's out in public or out on patrol, she can always be seen wearing the circlet she saved from destruction on her head, even if it is partially obscured by her copious bangs. On patrol, Lavenda sports the upper half of a short-sleeved black and red pilot suit. Alongside it, she dons black shorts with red sash, pretty much like Yajirobe's. On her forearms are simple armbands reminiscent of Bardoc's, the non-canon one. She struts a pair of black boots with red accents going along the top and bottom, as well as down the middle on the front and back, all tied together with white ties on the foreleg and ankle of each boot. Beneath those, a simple pair of long, high-cut socks, stockings, braces. Not quite sure what they are, but they look cool. Now we move on to her casual attire, which is what she wears when she's not patrolling, but still out in public. Her casual look is a lot more free, with a pure black sports bra beneath a purple sleeveless jacket. This is much like Bido's, but the buckle is a copper color rather than gold. The copper theme carries over to the fashionable thin bracelets on her wrist and the buckle on her dark purple belt, wrapped securely around her black shorts. A lighter purple sash features prominently, tied from her left and adding asymmetry to her outfit. On her feet reside the very pale yellow boots from her participation in the Festival of Universes. And, to top it all off, when she wants to see something in closer detail, Lavenda pops on her pair of circular glasses framed in a decorative silver that, according to Cronoa, really completes her look. Moving on to her transformations. These have already been mentioned, but this is just in case anyone has skipped over here. Lavenda has access to Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and Super Saiyan 4. But she also has the potential to reach the Limit Breaker state thanks to her exposure to God Ki. Next is a short list of moves and descriptions. Firstly is the Burning Attack, courtesy of Trunks. The user performs a series of quick arm motions before firing an orange, fire-like Ki blast. Next is either the Gallic Gun or the Super Gallic Gun, courtesy of Vegeta. The user cups one's hands together in a claw-like position, and angles one's body slightly before charging and launching a purple beam of Ki. Then there's the Energy Wave combo, a simple move that fires small orange beams of Ki from alternating hands. This is traditionally fired up to 6 times. The next two are original moves that I've come up with myself. The first is the Sadalan Fly Trap. The user lays minuscule Ki blasts onto the ground, and upon command, said blasts increase to desired size and take on the form of discs with jagged edges. They can be used to restrain or contain in any form the user is using, but strong enough entities can break through and or destroy the constructs. Finally is the Memorial Spear, a simple but powerful Ki weapon that's fired either like a physical spear to penetrate defenses, or fired in multiples by will alone for coverage. For this one, think of Shadow the Hedgehog's Doom Spear variant of Chaos Spear in Sonic X Shadow Generations for the last example. And with that, my little fact file for my Xenoverse 2 CAC Lavenda is complete. As I mentioned in the intro, if you have any constructive criticism, either about the character or the video, or perhaps information about your own characters you'd like to present, do say so in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Additionally, we have a Discord server now, so do feel free to join us. The link will be present in the description. With that being said, this has been A Spectrum D with the Fiction Forge, and until next time, fare thee well.